So recently, there's been some speculation that MonsterVerse devs have no idea what they're doing and there's no planned future for the game, and I'm here to clear up some of this misinformation as well as just go over what the community is saying because there is some valid criticisms that we should discuss, as well as just some other information I'd like to share with you guys as someone that does have a little bit of background context as to what is happening in the game because I have access to their influencer server. Now I do want to clarify because people love to say this, but just because I have access to a server does not mean I'm inherently biased or I can't think for myself. I, of course, have opinions. I'm a commentary channel. I love to talk. I think that's pretty apparent. And, having access to a server does not mean that I'm not capable of criticizing people or giving my honest opinion. I think I've been pretty critical and honest about MonsterVerse. And I've also, given the game compliments when I feel like it deserves it, which is, to be fair, quite a bit of the time. However, with that in mind, I did want to go over this particular thread because I thought I gave some interesting insights and maybe just some sentiments from the community that I think the developers could help clear up and give people some more confidence in them with. Now, I do want to clarify because anytime I make these kind of videos, people are like, Pommy, you can't talk about that. And people get mad and they flame me or whatever. But I want to be very clear. If people post stuff online publicly, it is free range for anybody to take and to talk about. Now, with that in mind, when you post something publicly, you have no expectation of privacy. However, I do board the usernames for a reason because there's no reason for people to get hated on for their opinions. You are allowed to have your opinion and that is totally okay. However, as a commentary YouTuber, I am also allowed to share my opinion. So the usernames are censored for a reason. Don't try and find these people. Don't leave comments. Leave them alone. They are entitled to their opinion and that is 100% valid, okay? So anyways, with all those disclaimers out of the way, the thread starts off by saying, Peach and the dev team have no clue about the next update. So this is actually a really funny picture. I want to save that. Before y'all attack me, hear me out. Okay. I'm 99% sure that Peach and the developers are making the next updates up on the spot. They have no clue what's going to be released next because they have nothing planned. Every single thing in the past few days has been contradictions after contradictions. One developer says that and then Peach says that. I feel like they have no clue what they're actually doing with the game. It's rushed. It's actually an alpha/AFK farming game. Nothing to do, literally nothing. Everything is buggy and not stress tested. Which, this was posted today, at the time recording this, which I'm pre-recording because I'm going to be on vacation. So this is pretty recent, so I'm not quite sure why they're saying there's nothing to do in the game when there was just a runway update at it, which to be fair, it was pretty buggy. I couldn't play it. There's lots of issues with it. However, I do feel like they've made quite a bit of bug fixes to that, so I wouldn't say it's necessarily an AFK farming game anymore. However, definitely when it first released, there wasn't a ton to do, but I understand it was a tricky release. There's a lot of aspects in the game that they want to add, and so it's daunting. It's a tricky situation, and so I understand both sides, how it's a lot of work to do, and so I'm not trying to judge them for that, but I also understand people's disappointment because the game was highly anticipated. With that in mind, I also do agree with the comment here they make that it wasn't stress tested. Stress testing is basically when you push a game to its absolute limits to see how many players can it support, how many things can we add before the game crashes, and I definitely think that's something that could have been done before the game was released, maybe for Ko-fi donors. However, the game's released now, so nothing you can do about it. So let's move on. There's a lot of comments here and some of them are a little bit feral, which I might not even include because but we're gonna get straight into it. This person writes, I'm starting to think they didn't expect the game to blow up as much so quickly. Honestly, I didn't even know about the game until it had gotten banned on Roblox the first time around. And I definitely agree with this. I think MonsterVerse, with its controversies, not really talking about any specific person or situation, but with Roblox specifically, has been, something that, although it was negative in the moment, I think it really helped MonsterVerse kind of gain traction, because the best way to, identify with people, sure, can be through happiness, but 9 times out of 10, even if you look at my channel, negative videos perform so much better than positive, because no one wants to hear about, oh, sunshine and rainbows, everything's happy, yay! They want to hear, this is terrible, I hate this, and all this sort of stuff, and I try not to be too negative, but at the end of the day, that's what people want to see on commentary channels, so I do my best to balance it. But with that in mind, I definitely do think the negativity that was surrounding this game, specifically with Roblox's failure to acknowledge that women bodies are a real thing and they aren't inherently sexual, did create a lot of, conversation and discourse around this game, which further, propelled the game into spotlight and made more people aware of it, because the more people talk about it, the more people are aware, the more people that play. And so obviously when you hear about it, they want to learn what the game was, and I definitely think that gave them a lot of traction. And although maybe in the moment it wasn't the best thing for the game, and it caused the release date to be pushed back, but I think long-term was actually a very good PR stunt that Roblox accidentally gave them. When I say it was a stunt, it was something that actually happened, my bad, but it was a very good PR event. I don't even know what to call it. A PR event that happened, I guess, where Roblox accidentally gave them the spotlight, and I'm sure this game would have done well regardless, but I definitely do think that played into, how many people were so outraged and talking about the game. This person replies, when I looked at the Discord server on release day, I was so shocked at the amount of people, that happened really fast. And I definitely agree. And I think that's why a lot of people, specifically people in certain communities, are actively working to try and destroy the game and make up harmful comments and say nasty things. I think people are threatened by how fast the game has grown. However, I want to reiterate, like I've said in multiple videos, these games, a variety of dress-up games, can all coexist. They are not competition. Let's relax. Now this person writes, I mean, I don't know, I want to believe you're wrong, but I don't have much faith, which I feel like the failure or the lack of faith here isn't because people don't like the game, but because of the lack of communication. And, you know, as somebody who is pretty passionate about communication, obviously I'd love to talk, I definitely think that communication is the fundamentals of game development. And sure, you can have a scripter, a builder, someone who models, etc. But if you don't have the fundamentals of communication and clear communication, it creates an environment where players don't understand what's happening. Because the average player, they don't understand things regarding to modeling, they don't understand all the logistics of scripting, and that's not because we're stupid, that's just because we don't know it. I don't know it. I don't spend my time scripting, so I have no clue, right? However, you know, what we do understand is communication and understanding release dates, and that's something that everybody can understand. And so, you know, creating a sort of environment where people can understand what you're trying to say and putting it in a language that we understand, I definitely would help people develop more faith in the game. This person writes, is that why there is no announcement for what is next update maybe? This is so unfair, so many of us bought their game passes. Don't tell me the game isn't going to survive, it's only been a few weeks. This person replies, this is why you buy game passes after the beta has been out for a while and they start giving dates for full release. And this person responds, yes, Steph, but we were told they were on sale for 2 days, which is insane. I got scared and wanted to save Robux thinking it would be a successful game. Which I want to say, interject here, not to be like defensive or anything, but I certainly don't think buying the game passes was a mistake. Do I think, like I mentioned in previous videos, was it a little bit misleading that they were only going to be on sale for a couple days? Yes, but I believe the reason they extended it was because of all the bugs and they wanted everybody to have equal access to the items. However, personally, the FOMO tactic, it worked on me, guys. I fell for the #1 marketing tactic on the planet, and I bought all those game passes thinking they're going to go off sale very quickly, and it made me purchase. And I think that was great for the game. It gave them some more finances to be able to develop further. However, I can understand players' frustration with being like, I bought these game passes and I can't use half of them still, and they're still half off, because you want something to show for the fact that you supported the game early. And I felt like the whole discount thing was meant to incentivize people to support the game early. However, I feel like it's kind of like almost like backfiring now, where it's just kind of like a common thing that everybody has now. And when they make the game passes full price later down the line, players are going to be mad because it was supposed to be a limited edition thing, and now it's been like a thing for like a couple weeks, and it's definitely going to cause issues when they revert it to the original price, because they're like, oh, well, you left it there so long, you couldn't leave it there for an extra day. Like, no matter what they do, people will be mad, and that's just a given. Now this next comment, which this is a longer one, it reads, they never had a roadmap in the first place. The only testing they did was having donators try out the same crap we were handed on launch. The devs also claimed that they had no idea the game would be this much of a mess because they only tested it with less than 100 people prior to release, and also stated things were perfectly functional and bug-free. Survey says that was a lie. Most game developers that actually properly do a beta release for their game do so in stages to test server loads, tweak numbers, etc. MonsterVerze devs did none of this and instead seem to be running on thoughts and prayers at this point. None of them seem to have any genuine game dev experience. Also confirmed the fact that one of the devs worked on Astro Renaissance tells me so much about why the game is being run into the ground. Now, something I want to say here is none of them seem to have any genuine game dev experience, but then refer to one of the co-owners that does have game dev experience. So I'm a little bit confused with the contradiction there. However, I think what they're trying to illustrate here is that they are frustrated, which I understand. I think that's fair. However, I think the cursing and stuff, that's really not needed. But I understand the frustration. I'm not going to, villainize this person for being frustrated. I think that's a completely normal emotion to feel. However, I do want to clarify that, I think there was a lot of testing that went into it, and I don't think it comes from a lack of effort. And I want to make that very clear. I think a lot of people are trying to paint, not necessarily this person, but a lot of people are trying to paint the MonsterVerze devs as not caring, or being lazy, or rushing. And I really don't agree with that sentiment. And you can call me biased, you can call me whatever you want, but the truth behind it, and what I believe to be the truth, is the fact that these people are very, very passionate about their game. And that they genuinely really do care about their game, and they really want players to like it. And, there was so much pressure put on them, which, I'm going to be honest, part of that was from channels like mine that make commentary about it and talk like, wow, this game's going to be the next big thing, and I'm so excited for this. And then it does, create a sentiment where players get really hyped up for it. And I think the game also hyped up their game, which rightfully so, it's an amazing game. However, I think that, all that hype from all these commentary YouTubers, creators, MonsterVerze creators, Royal High creators, Just Impressed creators, all these people talking about it, created almost this illusion, I guess, that the game was going to be completely perfect. And I apologize if I made it sound that way. That was never my intention. But at the same time, I think people have a right to be upset that there's bugs, but also need to be considerate of the fact that this is a new game. The game is not going to be perfect. It's in early development, and I understand that people are frustrated, and I think that's a valid feeling to feel. But calling people liars or saying, oh, they don't have any experience and that's why the game's running to the ground. No, they're trying and they're learning. And I think it's a little bit silly to villainize people for learning. It'd be different if they're just like, oh guys, yeah, sorry, doesn't work, whatever, and then they abandoned the project. But every day they're on that server answering questions, filling out tickets, responding to people. And I think, obviously not everybody has this insight, so I'm not judging these people for not knowing, but even in the influencer server, they're putting out like sneak peeks for us, like stuff like what's coming to the game. And it is so obvious to me that they're just so wanting to not let the community down, and they are trying to do so many things at once that unfortunately when you have so much things on your plate, there's inevitably going to be things that fall off or things that don't work out, and that is okay. But I think, the core of it is that they're trying, and I think that is the most admirable thing, because regardless of the backlash they've gotten, regardless of all the hate, they are still trying and they are still doing their absolute best, and I'm not going to villainize them for that. Sure, are we frustrated that there's bugs? Absolutely, but I'm not going to sit here and be like, you suck because you couldn't do it perfectly the first time. Like, in my opinion, I think that's a little bit childish. People are trying their best, and I think let's give everybody grace. I think it's a lot easier said than done when it comes to game development, and at the end of the day, I think a lot of the people complaining, including myself, have no concept of how hard game development can be. And that doesn't mean that a game dev shouldn't do their absolute best, but it also means that, I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm an expert on game development and criticize somebody when I don't necessarily know the full scope of what goes on behind the scenes. Now, this person wrote, I just want them to have the classes and battling, which from what I understand, they're actively working on that, so that's what I understand. This person writes, honestly, I believe this. There is no promotion either, which also makes me think that it's on spot decisions. I really hope that it's a statement about their future plans of the game, because it's concerning, which I understand this statement 100%. I understand this person saying, and this is something I mentioned in my previous videos where I'm like, I think they could really benefit from a roadmap, because I like to know what's coming. I think other people do. But also, I feel like their reasoning for not doing this is because previously they've had a lot of, toxic interactions with promising specific deadlines. And because they are a smaller game compared to larger games such as Royal High, where they have whole dev teams and, people dedicated to certain things, MonsterVerze is a small group of people who are just trying to do their best. And again, I'm not trying to use necessarily them being a small group as a crutch, but as an explanation, as a reasoning for why this is happening. And I think part of their, in my opinion, which they haven't said this to me, this is just my guess, reason why they may not be releasing a roadmap is because they don't want to let people down. And previously they've released dates and said, oh, we're going to have it up by this date. And then something happens, Roblox deletes them, something out of their control or maybe in their control happens, and boom, everybody's freaking out. It's like they're the worst thing ever to happen because they push back an update by 5 minutes. It's a whole thing, right? And I understand, not wanting to let people down. So I think the best way to not let people down is just by not setting super crazy high expectations. And I am hopeful that in the future with Sunday updates, there will be, some pretty cool updates. I'm sure the battling feature will come with time, the classes, stuff like that. I think we just have to be patient, and good things come to people who wait. I know that's a pretty generic, niche, basic statement, but I do think it holds true in this situation. And I think people who stay with MonsterVerze and are supportive of the game and believe in the game and aren't, quick to throw them under the bus will eventually reap the rewards of being an OG to a game that is going to be very, very popular. And I still do hold in my heart that I really do think this game is going to be the next big game on Roblox. I just really think it depends on how the devs handle this criticism and whether or not they use it as motivation to continue to produce their game, or whether the criticism destroys them. And at the time recording this, I don't think it's going to destroy them. I think they're all pretty resilient and they know what they're doing and they're trying their absolute best. So, I think my hope is just that, they won't let this criticism get to them. They won't let, people's negative feelings make them feel like they're not doing a good enough job, because I think they're really trying their absolute hardest. And again, I try to give people grace and, be mindful of the fact that people have lives outside of this. A lot of these people, they've been pretty clear it's a passion project. So these people work probably full-time jobs, or they're in school, they have IRL commitments. They can't sit their whole day glued to their computer desk, so I'm just trying to be mindful. Now, there's a couple more I want to go over before I quickly end this video. Then says, they also promised us multiple times the game will have an update every Saturday/Sunday, but now it just feels like dressed to impress weekly update issues all over again, which I can understand why this may be, lack of better terms, kind of like bringing flashbacks back for people. I understand that. I want to believe this game had a lot of main gameplay mechanics already, and they would just slowly release it for public testing, but I lost faith. Which I am going to be fair, from the Q&A, I thought they had a lot of features ready. This is my interpretation or what I understood. I thought they said they had a lot of features ready, but there hasn't necessarily been a ton added. At this moment, I don't know if they're still trying to figure things out. I'm sure there's been other things like them trying to fix bugs in the background, so I'm just going to try my absolute best to be patient, and that's, I think, what we should all do. This person says, I'm a teacher. I teach things like programming. Based off all I've seen, I'm throwing out here, they're all modelers at best. There's no programmed, I think they meant to say programmer listed, because there's no programmer. It's AI programming. No art nor models as far as I can tell. AI, just the programming, it's sloppy. The models are basic as hell, except the bodies and clothing, hence why walking on lily pads or even trees can fling you out of the map. I think they may even have bought some of these models, but that's not a problem. It's normal to hire specialists to make programs or models for games. Does anyone have in work photos of the models or them making them in stream in progress or programming at all? Which I'm going to make a whole separate video about this, but I am, obviously curious about this. I think it's a bold statement to say something is AI, but I will go more deeper into this in another video this week where I will discuss it further. But I'd be really interested to, see what you guys have to say about this. Personally, I don't hold the belief that anything in this game is AI. I think people are very quick to call things out as being AI, even on my own channel. This background, which I purchased from a real artist on Etsy, because that's what you're supposed to do, support real artists. And I am supporting a real artist that has like a star seller badge on Etsy, so typically, if you're scamming and selling AI art, you won't have a star seller badge. And the first time I ever used this background, I was like, oh my god, Pomni, and they're like screaming at me in the comment section, and like people on Twitter were like, oh my god, this stupid girl is using AI, what a stupid user. And I literally put the link to where I bought it, and still people are like, oh my god, that's AI, every video. No, it's not. I support an artist like I was supposed to. So I feel like, a lot of people are very, very quick to call things AI because it's kind of like a buzzword right now. And I'm not necessarily saying this person isn't a teacher. However, there's several grammatical errors in this, so I'm not quite sure necessarily how truthful that is. However, with that in mind, I am interested to see if you guys maybe think the same thing. Personally, I don't think anything in this game is AI. I think they take a lot of pride in hiring real people and working with real people, and I do think it's a little bit of a unfortunate thing to accuse them of. However, if this person has any screenshots or evidence or proof, I would love to see it, and would definitely include it in my next video should they be able to provide that. But with that in mind, thank you guys for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye!